You're listening to the Player Issue Podcast. Here's your host, Aaron Warwick.
What's up, everybody? Episode 16 of the Player Issue Podcast being brought to you live from the Player Issue Podcast studio. It's been a real rough time out there for the last few weeks, hasn't it? And luckily football is back. It was very touch and go for a while there, but luckily it has made it through. Unfortunately, all it will take is somebody within the football realm to get sick, and that's probably going to be the end of it for at least a little while, or even the rest of the season. So fingers crossed we get through that and it doesn't happen, and everyone is able to isolate themselves and go in lockdown, and we're all able to get healthy and we can go on with our lives as usual. But yeah, don't really see it happening that easily, unfortunately. But yes, football is back, so I've managed to watch a few games today and yesterday, of course. It is Saturday evening here, and I did go to watch the Carlton and Richmond game, and yeah, very, very different feel, different experience watching from home at an empty crowd, with the players having to make their own atmosphere, but the level of football is still quite good. Usually in the first few weeks of the footy season, you'll see that the skill level is quite low, but it actually wasn't too terrible. So the players really, obviously you can tell, really want to get out there and just play some football and just enjoy themselves and try and take everybody's mind off what's going on. And of course, that's what we're here to do today. So it has been over a month since our last episode. But of course, with all of this going on, it has made it rather difficult trying to get some guests on for the show. So we have 3 or 4 people lined up to come on, but it has been rather difficult to get them on around all this going on. So we have been lucky enough to get one on last night for an interview over Skype. So thankfully we're able to bring you an episode this week. And we'll have to wait and see if we can get another episode going in the next month. And hopefully everyone can get free, or everyone stays healthy, of course, and we're able to bring it to you again in another month's time. One just quick thing I will bring up before we get to today's interview. Well, there's a couple of things I will bring up. So Thursday night, I noticed during the footy that the Carlton and the Richmond jumpers, obviously both wearing Puma, they ripped quite easily. So they do look like they're made almost paper thin this year. They look almost matte material. They do look quite different to what Richmond had been wearing the last couple of years. Not too sure how I feel about it just yet. Obviously, I would love to see the raised monogram on the Carlton CFC come back. It would look tremendous on those jumpers. They're obviously much better than the Nike jumpers, and that they are all sublimated, which is great to see that back again. But it would be great to see that trait come back with the monogram raised. We'll have to wait and see if they can do that in the next year or two. A few other things, obviously Essendon running out in their Under Armour kit this week. Look very similar to Brisbane's Majestic jumpers. They're almost the same material, I believe. Fremantle running out pretty much the exact same jumper they have in the last couple of years. Obviously no 25-year logo on the back collar. Gone back to the old anchor logo. There is one slight difference between the 2018 jumpers and this year's jumpers, and that is the rear sponsor is actually really low on the jumper. While I think it actually looks quite ridiculous how low it actually is, especially on your taller players like Rory Lobb, it was hanging really, really low, and it looked really, really weird. At least it does give us something that we can distinguish a 2018 to 2020 jumper. So thank you for that, I guess, is that we can pick out those jumpers at the end of the season. So I will make sure I don't spend anywhere near as much money as I did last year. Also, I'm sure most of you noticed if you're watching the Adelaide and Sydney game, that's behind the Adelaide goals, well, from the first quarter, I believe. I'm not sure. I did actually only start watching it in the third quarter. The Crows had 200. I'm going to say that majority, if not all of the 200 jumpers were player issue, possibly even match worn, but player issue jumpers all hanging on the seats. The reason I had 200 was because it was Rory Sloane 200th game, and that was their tribute to him. So a lot of obviously keen-eyed collectors did see that they had some player issue jumpers hanging over the seats, and they've been frothing at the bit to get their hands on that, no doubt. And also notice the Port Adelaide Football Club wearing their new sponsor on their on their left chest is the MG sponsor. So they've got to be the club that has had the most changes in a season in the first couple of rounds at least, where they've had heat press logos either on the front or the back or both. it's got to be a record how many they've had over the last even just 6-7 years. It's unbelievable how quickly they go through their sponsors. So not sure why that is, but I guess it's great for clubs like that where every year they've got a new sponsor that they can collect. Unlike Freo, we've had the same one for the last 9 years. So yeah, I wouldn't actually mind a new sponsor myself, but a new heat press sponsor every year is possibly getting a little bit frustrating for some people. So I'll leave the footy at that. Obviously some more footy come this week and hopefully your team plays well. I was quite happy with Freo's last 10 minutes of the game. That's about it. It was pretty ugly to watch the rest of it, but some impressive signs in that last quarter. So they play like that, they'll definitely win some games, and they certainly won't finish 17th like a lot of people have been tipping them to do. So we'll leave the footy at that for now. And we're going to move into an advertisement today. So this is a bit different. We've never actually had an advert on here as of yet. And it's not going to be a podcast where you'll hear a lot of adverts in the future. We'll keep it low. As a matter of fact, the reason we'll keep it low is because advertisers just don't want to advertise with us because we have a very niche market. But this is obviously something that is very relevant to the product. It's a bit of a passion of a collector's. And he's going to take the reins on this one. So I'll throw it over to Justin. Take it away, mate.
Hi, listeners. My name is Justin Leckie, and I'm a Port supporter, a member and a fan, and also a Guernsey collector like most of you. I've been following the podcast since episode 1, and Erin has done great work in keeping it entertaining, informative, and also making sure that you guys provide feedback and it's all taken on board. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. Erin has asked me, as a volunteer at the Afl Fans Association and also a committee member, to let you know a little bit more about our organisation and what they do for fans. Our mission is to give all fans a voice, and this includes you. So what is the Afl Fans Association? We all recognise that Australian football is now a big business as well as a sport. However, it's the fans who keep this business afloat. There are many interest groups involved in the AFL, so fans often have little say over decisions, despite being the game's largest stakeholder. The Afl Fans Association was established in 2013 by a group of everyday fans who felt that the grassroots AFL supporters needed a collective voice. The players had their association, the coaches had the AFL Coaches Association, and the umpires had the AFL Umpires Association, but we had no voice. The AFL Fans Association has since worked hard to change that and give fans a strong independent voice. We want to make sure that the fans are treated as stakeholders and needed to be consulted, not just be treated as consumers. We are independent and not affiliated with the AFL or any AFL clubs. We have a small committee that is elected each year, and we are all volunteers and hope to continue this good work in the future. We represent the interests of our members and everyday fans who love the game. This includes grassroots supporters who turn up every week, casual fans, and those who passionately follow the game from home. This includes all you guys as Guernsey collectors and listeners of the podcast. We're effectively a lobby group and a watchdog. When appropriate, we lobby the AFL, clubs, stadiums and governments. We monitor the decision of the AFL and the clubs very closely and work with various media outlets to provide a voice for fans. This means calling out decisions we feel are not in the best interests of fans or where balance is needed. We don't see our role as telling fans what to do. Rather, we see our mandate as providing a voice for fans, especially everyday fans who have historically not had much of a say. Examples of issues that we have commented on recently or last year on social media and our website include ticket prices, access to the grand final, especially those of members of competing clubs, stadium matters and such things as fan behaviour and security guard crackdowns, food and drink prices of course, and putting polls up on topical issues to make sure that the fans' views are represented. If you're as passionate about the game and being a fan and having your voice heard as you are about collecting Guernseys, why not become a free member to keep informed? Our website is www.aflfans.org.au, or you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or LinkedIn by just searching our name. Thanks very much for listening and happy collecting.
Okay, so thank you very much for that, Justin. So make sure you all jump onto the website, as Justin has pointed you out. and just jump on there and have a look and become a free member, as he mentions. It's a great cause, and it's for all of us. And of course, it's free to become a member, so why wouldn't you? So we're going to jump into our interview now. This is a long time coming. We did do an interview over a month ago where he came into studio, but unfortunately my Audacity program that I did use to record originally decided to stuff up, and it was the first I'd ever seen of that. So I didn't know what to look for, or even know that it was not working throughout the entire interview, so it's a bit of a pity. So it was done over Skype the second time, which of course quality is never the same as being in studio. Still great chat, still had a great time. It's still an hour and 5 minutes worth of a conversation, so certainly not cutting you short there at all. And I hope you enjoy it. He's really informative, great bloke, a bit of a background collector, so you won't see too much of him, but I reckon he might come out of the woods a little bit now that he's out on the waves. So here he is our conversation this week with Mick Rush. Mick, how are we, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks, Aaron. How are you, bud? It's good to hear you again.
Yes, indeed. So the reason he's saying is good to hear it from him again is because we did attempt this a while ago now. You actually came over and you came into studio and we recorded a great interview in studio. But unfortunately, my program that I record the in-studio interviews decided that they didn't want to hear us. So it completely stuffed up, and none of them was self. It was really disappointing, but glad to get you back on, Mick.
Yeah, no, it's good to talk to you again, mate. Looking forward to it.
And you came over from Brisbane, is that correct?
Yeah, my hometown is Brisbane. I live in Ipswich, which is about 40 minutes west of Brisbane, and I've lived over here for about 20 years, but I'm from Perth, so I'm a Perth native, so lived there, grew up there, and I've got one of my kids lives over there, and he had a grandchild, so I went over to see her, so that was good, and him as well, so that was good.
Yeah, well, I'm more than happy to tell people that you came over just for the show, so I'll just continue doing it.
Yeah, I should have. Good story. Should have left it at that. But to see you as well, mate. I did make time for you because when I'm in Perth, I have a lot of downtime, so it was good to come out and have a chat to you. And but anyway, we're here now, so it's good.
Well, it's not easy for you to get out to me either.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't too bad.
Good little scenic drive, anyway.
Yeah.
So you're coming from Brisbane, which is fantastic.
Yep.
So you're there at the moment as well? You're in Brisbane right now?
Yeah, I live, my house is out at Carolee, which no one's heard there. So I'm just, sitting there. This crisis going on, trying to stay at home as much as I can, but, I'm lucky I can do a little bit of work from home. As we said in the last one, I also run a gym. That's a little bit, there's a few issues with that.
Yeah.
But just trying to keep things rolling and kicking over.
I can imagine actually it's had quite a bit of a damper on your business then, is that correct? Because I mean, I work in retail. It hasn't really hit us too hard yet, but I can imagine, with all these people saying that we have to keep out groupings of more than 100 people and things like that, and we're in a shopping centre, I don't know how we're supposed to do that, but I can't wait. Well, I can imagine it's going to be not too near distant future that we're going to have to shut down and probably go in lockdown for a couple of weeks. So how's it affecting you?
Yeah, well, I have a gym. I do a few different things. So I also work in the Air Force as well. But with the gym, I've had a few members cancel their membership. We have a pretty loyal crew there, so people are still coming now. We keep everything disinfected, so it's not too bad. Hasn't hit too hard, but I anticipate it could. I'm hoping not, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's tough times out there, and as we can see from the first game and a half of footy that's happened so far,
it's unusual.
It's a very different world.
Yeah, I think it's something we'll just get used to. Hopefully it keeps going.
Yeah.
I've watched it and actually quite enjoyed the games. Turned Collingwood game off then, and they were belting Western Bulldogs at the time. But we'll get used to it. Hopefully it'll keep going. I love watching footy as all the guys that listen to this podcast do. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, of course, and I think it's going to show you just who the real good teams actually are, because they're not going to have that crowd behind them, and you're actually going to see the real skillful and how polished the teams really are. So I think it's going to be good to actually watch. I enjoy it.
It will be different, and there could be some positives that come out of it with the reduced quarters, down to 16 minutes. I actually like that. I'm a bit of an advocate of that. So I think that will be good for footy. Because I think our game does drag on a bit. I think, for purists, like you and I that love to watch footy, we can watch for 3 hours.
Yeah.
But, if you want to get the younger crowd coming in, we can shorten it a little bit. And it's also good for player well-being and all that. So I think that might be a positive that'll come out of it. We'll see what happens too, that if they play, 3 games in a week, that'll be interesting to see. If they try,
that'll be very interesting.
Which they're talking about,
Very
different times in footy at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to change day by day as it has been the last few days. So anything could happen this time next week. You don't know.
Exactly.
So, and like you say, with the short, that's right. I mean, anything can happen tomorrow. As soon as someone or a player gets tested positive for coronavirus, that's it.
Exactly.
Either put on hold for a while or can. So anything's going to happen for sure. It is. You mentioned with the shorter quarters. When I first heard about it myself, I thought, what are they doing this for? I didn't really understand. But I guess without that crowd participation and all the atmosphere going on, it could drag on and be a little bit boring. So I did see how that could be a factor as I was watching the game. And then towards the end of the game in the last quarter, when Carlton were really hitting that Richmond quite hard, the fitness level of Richmond just took over, and they so you could tell the fitness level is the real major factor that's going to help the players out in the field for sure.
Exactly. That's one good positive, and we've got to take every positive we can get out of it, I suppose. At this time. Yeah.
As much as we'd love to be able to get out there and watch the footy. Unfortunately, that's it.
Because I know you're coming over here too to watch a game. I'm sure that's been cancelled now too. So.
It has, yes. I was on my way over to the Gold Coast. I'm glad I didn't actually organise that, and I was organising.
Oh, you didn't pay for it.
Didn't pay for it yet, so thankfully that didn't happen. We were putting it off, so thankfully it didn't happen. But disappointed I won't get to see my first game at the Metricon Stadium there. But is what it is.
Put it off for 12 months.
Yep, that's right. We're hoping to go to America again next year, so that's still on the back burner. But
just don't book your ticket yet, mate.
Yeah, it's it. We'll put it off as long as we can.
Just wait.
The last thing we want is to get stuck in a foreign country without any money to back us.
Definitely, yes, yeah.
All right, so enough about all that. So we'll get on to your footballing background. I believe you coached a team over in your way. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. I've done a fair bit of coaching in my time, so I suppose I'm a real football person. I suppose you could look at me as where I've always been involved in footy clubs my whole life. It's probably just dropped off the last few years where I've sort of got busy with work and stuff like that I've sort of dropped it away. But I played a lot and then coached, started coaching when I was about 30. I moved to Queensland in my 30s and then played a little bit and then started coaching in my mid-30s and coached out at Ipswich, which is it's a real rugby league stronghold out there. So the club originally was a RAAF club, and then we moved into the local area and we started the Ipswich Eagles in there. So I didn't actually coach. I was playing in those early days, but I started coaching them in 04 and coached through to about 2015. So I had 1 or 2 years off in the middle there when I got posted for a while, but so I've done a lot and like I suppose inadvertently been involved in a bit of development of AFL in the area out there. So we also started juniors and stuff like that. Not me starting juniors. I was the senior coach, but sort of had a little bit of input into the juniors. My kids started playing juniors as well. So it's been good having that bit of input into AFL, trying to grow the sport. And where it's come from in Queensland, from then when I moved to Queensland in the mid-90s to where it is now, is phenomenal how far the code's grown. AFL, it's fantastic. The AFL do a great job as well of promoting footy in this way, out this way, or through our whole of Queensland.
Yeah, it'd be mighty hard with the massive rugby following we've got pretty much throughout the whole of Queensland.
Yeah.
To get really much of a following out. Every
Yeah,
time
it's
I've
good.
been out to Brisbane and Gold Coast, it has actually been quite hard to find anybody who supports football. So, yeah, it's good to hear AFL
Yeah, it is
actually
like
do
that.
help that.
Yeah. It's great, but when I first got here, I don't know, we'll touch on the Bears at some stage, but the Bears were still playing then, and they were just starting to become relevant. So that was in '96. That was their last year when they started to play finals.
Yeah.
And they become relevant in the league because they started to become a good team. And that's when the AFL, that's when the code just started to get some, a foothold in Brisbane. They started to pack, the stadium out and stuff like that. So, they definitely has grown massively since then.
Yeah, great. I mean, it's just bringing the national game together, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I suppose from the outside looking in, if you come from Victoria or Perth, you'd probably think, no one knows about AFL, but if you've lived here and you've seen where it's come from, where it is now, I suppose you'd have sort of different perspectives on it. So, but they've done a great job.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
good. So, okay, we'll go back to the very beginning. So you lived in Perth for quite some time, obviously. So
yeah.
Did you actually get a chance to listen to our last episode with Sean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did, yeah. Yeah,
you actually have a very similar story, don't you, really?
Yes. Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, so Sean, he's a West Perth supporter, so he's obviously a bit younger than me, and started following it in the mid-'80s. I was, I'm a Swan Districts supporter, so I was a mad Swan Districts person. And, I originally started my dad was also in the Defence Force, so I originally started watching footy in Melbourne, so Collingwood in the real early, when I was 5 or 6, then moved back to Perth, and my first memories are in the mid to late 70s watching Swans, and my brother taking me to the footy and stuff like that. In the days when your parents would let your teenage brother take young kids to the footy. So, and some fantastic memories. So your Swans were sort of a pretty battling side in the mid 70s, and then become pretty good in the late 80s, and then started playing in grand finals in the early 80s.
Yeah, that's right. They were actually a real powerhouse team.
Yeah, they won 3 flags in the 82, 3 and 4. And I went to all of those, so it was good. Slept at the ground one night, at Subiaco Oval. Snuck into the ground before they opened the gate, and then got the security guard. I was in there for about an hour, sort of wandering around the scoreboard, and then the security guard come and grabbed me and threw me out. So I went to the back of the line, spewing. That's what you did in those days.
Yeah, everyone just lined up and just rushed towards the seat, or just rushed towards the spot.
Yeah, exactly. There was no seat allocation. I suppose in the general, admission area, you just rushed in. Everyone ran. Every year I got right down to the front, so that was good. So they only had paddle standing room at Subiaco, and they had the 3-tier stand, and they just had some new stands at the other end of the ground. So a lot of it was standing room.
Okay, so you followed the Swan Districts all the way through, and you mentioned you watched footy when you were in Melbourne, etc. But you're actually a Brisbane Lions or Brisbane Bears / Lions fan. So I have to wonder, how did that come about? When you're living in Perth at the time.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
How did that come?
But well, I was a Swans fan. I actually moved to Melbourne in '87. So I joined the RAAF in '86. So in October '86, which is coincidentally when West Coast Eagles and Brisbane were actually joined the league. And then I sort of then I went to Melbourne, moved there, and just got in Melbourne in the early '80s. Everyone hated the Eagles because the general consensus back then was that the Eagles were like going to be a state of origin team, and they were going to take over the league and just dominate. And I sort of got caught up in that a little bit. And didn't really like the Eagles, but I was also fascinated with the Bears. So I was more of a follower of the AFL in general, and growing the code, throughout Australia. So I just thought it was, a real bold move by the then VFL to put a team transplant a team, or not transplant, but put a team into Brisbane. Just throw a team together, put them in Brisbane to grow the sport. And I just sort of got behind them and was just hoping they would do well so the league, the competition would grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but before we get too far in,
Yeah.
Swan Districts, how many jumpers do you have from the Swan Districts Football Club? I imagine you have a few.
How many do I have now? They're very difficult to get. So I only have about 10 Swans jumpers. I have been collecting them. I got my first one in the 80s, so it was actually given to me by John Todd himself. And again, that was inadvertent because a mate of mine, his dad was really good mates with Toddy, and he took me and another friend to the ground one day, down to Bassendean Oval. Toddy was really gracious and showed us around the facilities, which weren't much in those days, but we thought it was the best thing since sliced bread at the time. And then we went into the change rooms and he introduced us to a few players, and there was a bucket of jumpers in the corner of the change rooms. And he just picked up a couple of jumpers out and gave one to each of us. And they were actually player worn jumpers, and I think they were just there because they must have been for the players to use for training. Anyway, I got that and basically wore it for about 5 years. I never really took it off. I wore it to training. When I first got it, hardly ever took it off. I loved it, and I still have it today, which is great.
Yes.
I sold it at one stage in the early 2000s when I was selling everything on eBay that I had, that wasn't nailed down. And then, but I bought it back when I actually realised how good it was, and I was lucky the guy sold it back to me. So I've still got it. It's great. But Swan Districts are difficult to get older ones. So, and they're the ones that I'm more interested in. So it's sort of pre-90s, pre-80s. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the waffle ones, really, you don't see too many of them all on eBay, Gumtree, etc., things like that. I don't know if it's the hardcore collectors will just contact the players or the clubs themselves to get them before anyone else, or they just get thrown in the bin. I don't know what it is, but they do seem to be very hard to find. Even the new ones aren't that easy to find, really.
Yeah, it's not a lot around. I do
weird.
have one new one from the 2010 season when I won the flag. I think you bid it on that one too. We were talking about that last time.
Indeed, I was bidding it up to the last minute.
So I have one from then. I don't know. I don't think it was worn in the game though, but it's signed by all the players, and it's jumper from that season. So that was pretty good.
There's some cracking players playing that game as well. Michael Walters, Caniglio, some crackers. Yeah,
it was a good game. That was a fantastic game. I actually watched that. That as well I was in, obviously Brisbane at that stage, but it was a good game. It's the only grand final that I missed since premiership of the Swans that I missed, since I've been alive anyway. So they've won 7 all up, I think, and I've been to 4 of the 7.
Wow.
So, and that was one I missed. So that was good.
that game is actually in full on YouTube, so anyone who does want to look it up, check it out. 2000 Waffle Grand Final. Went for a hell of a long time in the last quarter, I believe. 36, 37 minutes, somewhere around there.
Goal for goal towards the end there.
Actually cracking game, no pun intended.
Yes.
So some of your other Swan Districts jumpers that you have, what else do you have from the early days?
So the one I got given by Todd, he's Bill Skorowski, and people listening are probably not going to know any of these names, unfortunately. But he was, he played
John
three
Todd is
premiership.
certainly a big name over here.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone would know who John Todd is. And in those days, he was an absolute, rock star in the waffle competition. One of the all-time great coaches. Even at that stage, he had coached, even in the 80s, he coached. I could be wrong here, and I'm sure Sean will pick me up on this, but I think he coached South Fremantle to a premiership when he was a real young bloke. And then he coached East Fremantle to a flag in 74, and then he coached Swans to flags in the 80s. And he was a rock star in those days, in the waffle. I have one from Ron Boucher, a jumper he wore in the 80s. I don't think he wore it in the grand final, but it was from 84. He was a sort of an iconic Swans player, a ruckman, but, played a lot of state footy as well, but, probably not well known in the national level in these days. So they're probably the main ones that I have from that small collection, but it's growing. I have, Kevin Caton as well. I have a couple of his jumpers. He played AFL, as well. He played for the Eagles, and I think he was on their original list. And he also played with the Bears and Fitzroy, so he played with 3 clubs. But he only played about 10 games, but he played with 3 different clubs. Played a lot of footy with Swans, and was a really good player. And I actually spoke to him on Facebook as well, and just verified the jumpers with him. He said, he wore them, but as all players do. So it's a very small collection, but it's getting there.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you got you got to say you can start somewhere, but it's hard. Like you're starting, but it's probably taking you a long time to get that point, and it'll grow very slowly. But it'll certainly grow. I'm definitely sure you'll get some more out of that. Yeah,
well, if you think the first one I got was in the early 80s, I've only got 10 now. But I am always out on the lookout for them. I haven't had on Gumtree as well for Swans jumpers, but I did put a post on, Facebook and didn't get much out of it, so there's not many around. Sean beat me to one that was put on Facebook. It wasn't on there long. It was a 60s match worn by Swans.
Yeah, right.
And I messaged him and I said, look, you're interested in selling it, and he wasn't, unfortunately. But that's one I'd love to get, something from that era. So it was from the mid 60s jump. It was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Corking. Have you had the opportunity to talk to any older players at all about possibly getting into their jumpers?
Yeah, I don't do a lot of that. Mainly, most of my older jumpers come from networks and stuff like that. I have messaged a few players, as I said before. Kevin Caton. I have. I know we're probably going off track here a little bit, but I have. We did talk about it in the last one. I did message Simon Black about a jumper that I've have of his. He hadn't got back to me. It took him like 2 months to actually answer my message. And then he got back to me. But I haven't gone down that path as yet. Because I'm pretty happy with the jumpers that are coming in. Obviously too, with older, jumpers, they are quite expensive. So you got to also balance your budget and stuff like that too. You may sell stuff to try and buy more jumpers or different jumpers in the collection. Try and fill voids in it. Yeah.
So being that you're an inaugural Bears fan, I'm assuming you would have a few early on Bears jumpers as well, would you?
Yeah, I have, from their first 4 years, so from 87 to 89, I've got 9 jumpers from that era. I did have a few more, but I sort of had a lot of similar jumpers, and they are quite popular to sell, so they're easy to sell, and you can, so I did that. I sort of got a decent collection in there early, and I've got, there's 9 of that earlier period jumper that I have now. I think I've got 4 from 87. So that's really good. I got probably the best one. Oh, actually, I've got one from Brad Hardy, but I'm pretty sure that was worn in 88. But I have a Jim Edmund, so the older sort of people that used to watch footy knew Jim Edmund. He was mainly at Footscray. He was a captain of Footscray. Spent a year at Sydney and then he was on the inaugural list at Brisbane. So I've got his jump, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have a question for you. I don't know if you noticed or saw, but somebody put up I believe it was a retail, I'm not too sure, I can't remember now, but, oh no, sorry, it would have been player issue. A player issue, probably from the 87 season. I didn't really look into it as much as I should have. Yeah, very recent, yeah.
Oh yeah.
$1,500. Now, he got baked for putting that up for that price.
Yeah, I did actually read that thread,
Yeah, which is crazy, because most of these people who do, tend to comment negatively on these things, they just don't really know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
I had to get on there and say, there's a reason why these things go for this much, and you can tell that these specifically are player issue.
Yeah.
And there are things that give that away. Now, I'm sure you can tell the listeners better than I can exactly what it is that give it away, what it is.
Yeah, so, yeah, with that, and just on a side note, I actually owned that jumper myself for about 10 years. I had it, I actually bought that I think I got that in the late 90s, and I've sold it, I may have had it longer, because I sold it a few years ago to another collector. It was actually part of part of a trade where I got the Simon Black jersey that was part of the trade with that one. Oh, yeah. So I owned it, so I know it was real. And I'm pretty sure it was worn by Scott McIver in 89. But yeah, just to go back to what you were talking about with the Bears jumpers, and one of the reasons I do really love Bears jumpers is because they are authentic. You can see the authenticity in the jumper. There's a distinct difference between a Bears match worn and a Bears retail. Yep. So they have the stitched on logo. The retail has they have the felt iron on logo, and there's a line that goes around the back. So from the bottom of it's a BB on the front, and that goes around to the back, and that's stitched on. So yeah, that's pretty much. And I have seen I think, and I spoke to you last time about it. There's only been one that I was unsure about that had a stitched on logo that I've ever seen out in the market. It just didn't look right. Didn't look the same as the other match worns, but I've only ever seen one Bears like that. The rest of them, you can pretty much look at it, and if you know what you're looking at, you don't have to be a super expert with Bears jumpers like, say, the Eagles jumpers, for example, to tell the difference between a match worn and a retail. So that's one of the other reasons why I like buying them.
Yep, absolutely. Now, looking at your photo that you sent me a while ago now of your Bears collection, it's absolutely gorgeous to look at for a start. But the 87 jumpers, they had like the darker, almost browny colour. Yeah. Compared to, I believe it might have been the next year, they had that lighter maroony colour. Yeah.
So in the first 2 years, and they had the brown and yellowy colour, dark brown, as you said. I think it's cerise. Then they went, is that right? Is that the colour? Is that a colour?
Yeah.
And they
I only learnt that off the second episode we ever did. So.
Good, I got it right. They changed that in 89. Now, the only reason I would think that is because it's more of a Queensland colour, and it probably differentiated them from Hawthorn's jumpers because they're very similar colours to Hawthorn. So I think they tried to change their colour, make it a little bit different than the Hawthorn jumper. And through the 80s, the Bears did have some different jumpers where other clubs sort of just had the same jumper every week. The Bears did change their jumpers slightly throughout that late 80s period. So they had that change of colour. They also had home and away jumpers. So you had the sort of reverse colours. So you had you had the brown logo with the yellow jumper, and then they had the reverse jumper where you had the the brown and the yellow logo on the front. So I think they were the only club in that era that had those jumpers. So that's why there is a few to collect, a few different types. Yeah, so
I actually did a list of all the Brisbane jumpers that they have had throughout their tenure, and I'm gonna have to count them all up again because I just realised I never actually put a total. But in the first 4 seasons you had the home and away each season, so you've got 8 jumpers just in the first 4 years to collect. So, yeah, not easy.
And
but I will count that up as well.
Yeah, the one I am missing is in that first year they had the reverse jumper, which they're very hard to get. I've never seen one. I know of a guy who's got one, and he sort of tentatively said that he might sell it to me, but he hasn't committed yet. So that's the away jumper. They wore that I think mainly against Hawthorn, and they did wear it a little bit more in 88. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's the one that I don't have at the moment, but I have the rest of them. Yeah. So that's pretty good.
And they are gorgeous. Now, I have another question. This is one I've just thought of because I'm looking at this photo. Yeah. And I have to ask. I've never heard of it, but it's a very big possibility. Yeah. Looking at the BB logo on the front. Now, I've never noticed it before, and I don't know why I've never noticed. But there is a little bear's head in it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I've got to ask, did they ever get called the Mickey Mouses by any chance? Because they look like Mickey Mouses.
I've never heard anyone say that.
Damn, alright.
It doesn't stand out a lot, does it? So, I sort of, it took me, when I actually bought one, you could see it, but yeah, it takes you a while to actually realise there's a little bear's head in the logo. And it's a koala bear that they had when it was there. Yeah. Yeah, but exactly. Yeah, they had that in
definitely
the
like Mickey Mouse's head.
They're different jumpers. So,
no, they were very different.
Very weird.
It was fantastic. Yeah. No, I probably didn't back then. It probably, not everyone thought it was a great looking jumper, but as to everything else, you look back on it and you think, wow, actually very different, but it actually looks tremendous. And you look at it back.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, they are great jumpers for that era. And for what they were trying to do, for footy in the code and trying to differentiate again themselves from the other clubs, from the V's and the stripes and the sashes and all that. So they're trying to create something a bit different.
Now there's another one on the left-hand side of this photo in the middle.
Yeah.
Now this definitely has a good little story. It's got the Mitre 10 logo, which I thought was a great logo on the chest, and it has cut-off sleeves. Now there's a reason why they cut off sleeves. Do you want to share with everyone why they cut this?
Yeah, they're hard to get to, and the 89 jumpers, for some reason, you just don't see them. And one reason I think I've got this one is because the sleeves were cut off and they may not have recycled them to the next year. So that's just a little theory that I have. But with that, that's a jumper worn by, it's a good jumper because it's worn by a Swan Districts legendary player, and Mike Richardson. And he had played with, he played with Collingwood, I think in 8. He ended up being a journeyman in the VFL because he went to Collingwood, then Essendon, and then Essendon offloaded him and Jeff Rains to the Bears in 87. But the story with those jumpers is a lot of Bears were cutting their sleeves off. They're long sleeve jumpers. Probably that they come from the hot weather and went down to the cold weather in Melbourne but didn't want long sleeves. And then the actual VFL banned it. So they banned players from altering their jumpers, so they weren't allowed to cut sleeves off anymore. Yeah, and I think Tony Shaw also did it as well for Collingwood, cut his sleeves off. So that's why you never seen them again. And there's a few of them. There is a couple of them out there that cut sleeves, but I was really rapt to get that one. Very difficult to get.
Yeah, Rob's got one as well, which I put him onto off Gumtree a few years ago. So,
okay.
Yeah, I've seen a couple around, but it makes perfect sense why they'd want to cut the sleeves off. It gets bloody hot up in that area.
Exactly.
Queensland there, and
it's probably
especially in those jumpers as well.
Exactly, yeah, those woolen things. And it's probably why they're around, because the club would have just got rid of them because they couldn't wear them anymore. So, so they're out now in the marketplace in people's collections.
Yep. So up until, I believe, 96-ish area, that's about all you have as far as the 87 to 96 jumpers wise? Is that correct?
Yeah. The Bears' history was 87 to 96. So that's pretty much where, I only generally collect the older jumpers. I do have a few newer ones, as we talked about before, the Swans jumper, and I have a few Brisbane Lions ones, but not many. It's a sort of I have concentrated on the Bears stuff, so that's where it ends. And then they become the Lions in 97. They merged with Fitzroy.
And you were in Brisbane at that point as well, weren't you?
Yeah. So I was in Brisbane, and the general feel, I moved to Brisbane in the mid 96, so I did go to Bears games. I went to their finals and that in 96, and the feel that I got from the fans and the members of that stage is they didn't want to merge with Fitzroy because, as I said earlier, in the podcast, they just become relevant themselves. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And they did all that themselves. You know, Rob Walls, give him a lot of credit for getting all the young players in to the club when he started coaching in 91. And, they were just starting to come up and playing really well. You know, Volsak, Amana, Slappin, all these guys were just starting to play well, and we didn't want to merge. We wanted to stay as the Bears because, you know, if you think about where the Bears come from, in 87, 88, almost went broke in 1990, you know, we're a joke all through those early 90s, and then started to win games in 94, 5, and then finals in 95 and 6, and winning a final in 96, and then suddenly they're the Brisbane Lions. So, but, it definitely has been well worth doing. So, and obviously the people in the AFL knew what they were doing at the time. So,
yeah, absolutely.
It's been successful, definitely.
Yeah. Now, I'm just going to backtrack just a little bit. Have you ever seen a Nathan Buckley Brisbane Bears jumper, rather?
Yeah, only one. Well, the guy said, I did make him an offer, and we sort of come to a tentative agreement. And there's one here in Brisbane, that he said he bought off an auction, but it's number 11, so there's only, there could only be 2 players, that wore it, and one was Brett Hutton he went to Freo, or I think he was an inaugural player there at Freo.
John Hutton.
Who did I say? Brett Hutton.
Brett, but that's all right.
I'm thinking of the Swans, Brett Hutton.
That's what editing's for.
Yeah, so he wore number 11 in 93, and then Nathan Buckley wore it in 94. So it could only be those 2 players. He doesn't have a COA or anything, or any proof about who wore it. So it's just a bit of a, not that Hutton was a bad player. I mean, he was a pretty good player, excellent waffle player, played well for Freo. I think he was used more as a battering ram, I think, at the Bears.
Yep.
And then they offloaded him in 94, and then he ended up on Freo's list in 95.
Yeah. But that makes a huge difference in the value of the jumper either way you look, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, so if you can't, that's the only little thing I just couldn't 100% verify if he or Hutton wore it, so that was the only reason I didn't actually pull the trigger on it. I still might get it eventually. Yeah.
I mean, if you can get it cheap enough, it's still a great jumper.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, but when the owner is 100%, I would think, this is Nathan Buckley, because as you can, he's a legendary player, future Hall of Famer and everything like that, so he what he thinks the value is, and if he can 100% verify it, then you will pull the trigger on it. But if you can't, because what the money he wants for it, is a Nathan Buckley price. Yeah. The Hutton price is quite a bit cheaper. You know what I mean? So,
just got to convince him it's a Hutton.
Yeah, maybe I should. I haven't actually told him that yet, so, because I've only done my own research on it, so maybe I'll go down that track and see what we can come up with.
Makes it bloody tough either way. You really want something, but you're stuck in a hard place for sure.
Exactly.
bit of a racket going on around this place at the moment. I don't know what's going on. I think the dog's just come back from a walk, and I think my mum's actually arrived with it.
Oh, okay.
That's all right. Em can take care of that. So you've moved on to, we're in the 97-ish era now. So we're moving into the more modern era, which is where you really kind of slow your collection down a little bit. Is that correct? Yep. So you've got a couple from the modern era, but there's not too many. And you did mention the Simon Black. Now, this Simon Black that you're going to talk about very shortly is something a little bit special. So I'm excited to hear about it again. Yeah, well,
so it's sort of interlinked with that, with the Bears jumper that you've seen on Facebook the other day, because that one was a trade for the black. There were a few other things I got in it as well. When I originally seen it, the guy said, look, I've got this jumper. It's a guy was sort of brokering a deal with me. He says, we've got a Simon Black, and I just couldn't, you just don't believe that they're out there. So you think, this can't be real. He showed me the photos and I looked at it and it looked, 100% legitimate. You looked at it and think, that looks legitimate. And, so you do the trade, and I said, look, I'm never going to own a premiership worn jumper. So I might, you take a little bit of a risk and you get it, you do the trade and get it. And then, so I had it, I've sent Simon Black a message. And he said that he wore 2 jumpers on that game. And I thought, I didn't realise that. I thought they only wore 1 in 2001. But Simon Black himself, said, we wore 2. And he said he's got the one, that he wore in the first half. I thought that was unusual. And the story I got from the guy I got it off of, he said, yeah, he got it after the game. So Simon Black gave it to him after the game. And I thought, oh, that wouldn't have happened because Simon would have kept that one and given the one in the first half. So that was really great because I thought, well, that verifies that story. And so it looks as though it is 100% legitimate, which was really exciting.
Absolutely.
I also sent it off. I sent photos off to an American photo matching company.
Yeah.
And they do all the, baseball, basketball, the really old stuff. Obviously, memorabilia over there and worn jerseys and stuff over there are just astronomical in price. And he photo matched it there's a little stain on the sleeve. And he photo matched it to the preliminary final, of 01. So that was pretty exciting too. And because the logos are being stitched on, so they would have just recycled that jumper, stitched on the 2001 logo and wore it the following week. So so that was really good. So it looks like that was 100% legitimate.
That's exciting
it's a fantastic jumper. I just love it. Yeah.
It doesn't get any better than that. Having a player tell you that, I did wear that. So no, that's awesome.
And it was just like
so
nice
in saying that,
such a legend.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he was
exactly right.
He was talking to me. He said, yeah, Mick, and it looks like it's mine. But, obviously he can't 100% say, yeah, that's mine because it's in photos. But he said, it looks 100% like it is mine. But, and he told me the story about it. Yeah, he signed the back of it, yeah.
Okay. So I was going to say, you'd have to organise a meeting with him so you can have a look at it in person, get a photo with him and have him sign it. Really cool.
Yeah, maybe I might do that. Because he liked it. He was happy that I sent him the photo and stuff, so it was good.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And I suppose he may already have the other one, but I'm sure he'd be happy to see that both are still out there and still.
Yeah, I think he's happy
intact.
He's gone to a collector. Yeah,
definitely
as well.
Definitely. So, what other modern era Brisbane Lions jumpers do you have in your collection?
Well, I have a Lambert. That's probably the only other one I have is a Craig Lambert, and that's an earlier one. It's a 97 jumper. So I have that one. I have another one from 2000, which I haven't actually matched it to a player yet. I thought I had, but yeah. So I got that off eBay as well. That was recent. So they're probably the only ones. I don't have anything past. Oh, actually, I have one from 02, but it was just worn during the regular season as well. So they're the only sort of modernish ones that I had, and that one was worn by Luke Power. So that's a really nice jumper. And that one, they're good. The 02 ones, there was a difference between the match worns and the retail. Because the logo, the Russell Athletic sort of logo on the worn ones was in the collar.
Yes.
Whereas the other ones were on the actual jumper themselves. So it's definitely was worn. But it's been fully signed too, which is a sort of, some people look at it as a good thing, but I'd prefer it not to have anything on it. But anyway.
Yeah, I think most of us collectors agree. If it's going to be signed by anybody, just have it signed by the player itself.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have a choice.
It's fully signed by the premiership team that year, so that's good. But I prefer to. Yeah, I've got a few retail signed jumpers from that. Pretty much every premiership that they won in the 01, 2 and 3.
Yep.
So I got those because that's what I was sort of doing at the time when they were winning the flags. My kids were young and they were down getting signatures and stuff like that. So I've kept those. The kids didn't want them, so they stayed with me.
Fair enough. Are you looking for anything in specific region in the Brisbane Lions camp now that you would like to have in your collection, or is you pretty happy with where you are?
Yeah, I am fairly active in the collecting, but I'm always looking for older stuff. So I did buy one from the recent state game, so that's the newest one.
Oh, nice.
The newest jumper that I have, but but I sort of aren't really into that. And not that I don't like the new collections that I see out there. I think they're fantastic. And some of the collections I've seen are phenomenal from the new jumpers and they're obviously a lot more affordable and I see the collections of, people that get every jumper that the club's worn for the last 10 years, and I think that's cool. And I love the Indigenous jumpers and all the changes that they do. It's fantastic. Yeah. But it's not something I can get into. It's not something I could do it because I just fill my cupboards full of jumpers if I went down that track.
Yes, I feel that. I've got an entire room. That's completely cool.
Yeah, I have seen your collection. That's very impressive. The most impressive collection I reckon I've ever seen.
Some pretty good ones out there. They just don't want to come out of hiding. I'm trying to get them.
No, exactly. Yeah, there are definitely.
So you brought up a nice little segue there. So like we mentioned earlier, so Sean had a very similar story to you.
Yes.
In that he collected state jumpers. So you just mentioned you collected one of the new ones. However, you have a little collection of older state jumpers as well.
Yeah. So I originally started with I just wanted a couple of WA state jumpers, and mainly from state of origin because I love the state of origin and that era, sort of pre-87. I think it sort of lost its gloss when the Eagles come into the competition. So 86, but I still have quite a few right up till 99.
Yep.
But I started collecting a few WA jumpers, and I thought I'll just keep the collection there, but I've sort of expanded it out to other states now, and I've collected state jumpers from pretty much every state.
Okay.
Now I have also have some VFA rep jumpers as well, so they're pretty cool. And also just some I have mainly state of origin, but I also have some state jumpers as well.
Yep.
So that's good, and that's the good thing about state jumpers is players generally will have a lot of them, so they are a bit more available out there. Because like if you get a gun player, he played 10 state of origin games. They generally give them the jumper that they've worn once.
Yep.
And they take it home with them. They might train in it, and then they're out there. Whereas a lot of the club jumpers from the 80s, they would have only had 2 for the whole year, maybe 1. So there's not a lot of them out there. Yeah.
It makes sense. I don't think it's something that a lot of people would have thought of. Even myself probably wouldn't have thought of that. You'd think the state of origin, once or twice, maybe 3 times a year, that there'd just be far less of them. But you make a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, so every player, some players, Victorian players might have played up to 3 games a year. So, and they'd have 3 jumpers. And then they don't want 20 state. A lot of them will only keep 1 or 2 of their best state jumpers that they worn, and then the rest of them they'll generally offload.
Yeah.
So they are out there, which is good.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah. What's your oldest state jumper that you have? Not the state of origin, necessarily. The oldest state.
Well, you've got to come to this, and I think you touched on it. I think in the last episode. Yeah. So I have the contentious Polyfarmer. Well, we'll call it Polyfarmer sign jumper, and it went to an auction. I think it went from Poly, who owned it. It went to auction. It could be. I'm not exactly sure of the history of it. I need to research it a little bit more. Then it went out to auction to private collectors. Then it ended up in the Australian Museum at the MCG.
Yeah.
Then it went back out to the owner. So it's changed hands quite a few times. Then it went to another guy. And I think that was when it was really the authenticity of the jump was made a little bit contentious in his ownership. He was a guy in Geelong. This is a guy who I bought it off.
Yep.
And anyway, I had another mate of mine who brokered a really great deal for me. And I sort of bought it as not a poly jumper, but he said it's a state jumper, but it's signed by him, and there's a COA there that says he wore it. And I said, yeah, well, it's a good price. I'll grab it. And then sort of looked in the history and looked at a few threads going around, and so it's not a real issue for me if he wore it or not. I just love the jumper. It's in great condition. The colours are really nice. And it's, as you said, it's my oldest jumper. If I could verify it as a poly, it would be phenomenal, but it's pretty difficult to do. And I think, Swan sort of touched on the fact that, he couldn't find it on a budget or something like that, or a footy record.
Yeah.
That's how, so it couldn't be worn, but I don't know if you can sort of 100%, certified on that alone. Because a lot of, in those days too, they played in carnivals as well, so they would have played 5 or 6 games. So he might have worn more than one jumper. And, the numbers may not have corresponded to on the footy budgets themselves, but who knows? I'm sure they'll argue that, black to the blue in the face, but that's fine.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not like nowadays where everything is uniform and everything's easy to find out.
It
stats
is
are
very
easy to find.
easy.
It's real hard when you're talking about
impossible to verify.
Yeah.
I did watch a little bit of footage from a carnival in '58, where I think it was '58. It's on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay.
And he was wearing that style jumper, and I just caught the number, and it looks like he was wearing the different number to the one I had. I thought I'll watch this and see if he's got the same number. I was really excited, and different number. So it was like, oh, am I going to win lotto? No, I'm not. So, but no, I love the jumper. Looks great in the collection.
Yep.
And, whether he wore it or not, and obviously with what happened to him, later in life with the, the brain issues and that he had. So who knows?
Yeah, unfortunately,
I'm happy with it.
That's it. As long as you're happy with the jumper, that's all that really matters. And the fact that it is still a very old jumper and it was from the state games, I mean, it's still going to be a tremendous piece in anybody's collection, no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. And one day I will try and do some research on it and see if I can find out. But it's very difficult in that era to find out. But I know that museum that it was in may have some stuff on it. So I haven't been down that track yet.
Yeah. And so the museum, as was the National Sports Museum, is that correct?
Yeah. So that would be the biggest one in Australia. So if you haven't been there, and you go to Melbourne, make sure you go there. It's magic. It has a magnificent, AFL and VFL collection.
Definitely.
Jumpers, all sort of state jumpers, match worn, player jumpers. Everything cricket. It's just, I
awesome.
went there. I only gave myself a couple of hours, but I could have stayed there for a lot longer.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there a few times myself, but every time you go, you even pick up more stuff that you didn't see the first time, or pay more attention. So it's really, really cool. I would definitely check it out. But the fact that it's come from there and they said that it was a poly jumper is really exciting as well, but it's tough.
You don't know how much research they would have done. Well, Polly would have said he wore it himself. Yeah. So that's where and I know that, people sort of bag out COAs a little bit, and that one, But Polly would have told that company that he wore it. That's where they would have written the COA from.
Yeah.
So they're not verifying it themselves. They're verifying it from Polly's word that he wore it. So he's saying he wore the jumper. So
sadly, sadly tough. Sadly, very tough.
Yeah. I did have it when he was alive, but I never actually approached him because it was didn't want to bother him.
Yeah, it's a big bummer. I mean, it's hard not to. You always want to think, oh, man, I really should, because it'd be fantastic just to get it out of his own mouth that he did, or just any sort of story on it. But,
and he was deteriorating towards the end, so it's just left it. And
chances are he might not have even recognised it at that point anyway.
Probably wouldn't have,
Sadly. So you mentioned that you do have a West Australian state jumper from the first state of origin, is that correct?
Yes, so I've got... that's 100% from the 77 game, so that was pretty exciting.
Yep.
So I'll say who wore it. That was a Ken Hunter worn jumper, so that was pretty good, and that's got really good provenance.
Yeah, nice.
So it's got a photo of him holding the jumper, and this again another COA handwritten by himself, and you can see it in the game as well. So that photo matches, so it's 100% from that game. So that was that. I only just recently acquired that one, so that was a really exciting pickup. So yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, so they're probably the two main ones out of the state jumpers. I have a couple that I'm not sure who wore them.
Yep.
So, to be honest, yeah, I do need to do more research on the stuff I've got.
Yeah.
Probably one of my weaknesses in that area. So, because I know so much about footy myself, I can usually look at a jumper and know who wore it. There are some I don't, and then I sort of need to take the time to go back and try and verify it.
You've got jumpers from the 70s, I'm assuming you've got jumpers from the 80s and right up into the 90s.
Yeah.
Now, which one of those would be your favourite design? I know we had that chat with Sean in the last one. You've got the Swan, you've got the flying looking Swan, and you've got the stripy jumper. Now, which one would be your favourite?
Oh, is this the waffle state jumpers?
Yes.
Yeah, I love the Swan. Yeah. I'm glad they went back to that. I think Sean liked the sash, didn't he?
He did,
Is that
yes.
right? Yeah. Yeah, I like the Swan. I just think it's Western Australian through and through.
So you like the old Swan with the red bill?
Yep. Yeah, well, I like any of the Swans. Oh yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, so the Swan that was on the 50s jumper there and the sort of ones they wore in 93, that Swan.
Yeah.
So not the one with the wings hanging out that they had in the, yeah.
It's cool. I to be honest, I do like the sash. Probably my favourite. I don't know why. I don't know. It just looks powerful to me, but yeah, being West Australian, I do love the Swan as well. So I mean,
and it was a magnificent time for WA.
Yeah,
in footy, and that 77 game particularly. I mean, I remember it pretty well. That it was when Western Australians we thought were the king of the world at that period. We thought were the best. We had the best players in Australia when we beat Victoria in that game. So that was fantastic. But a lot of people don't realise we actually played that game in October. It was after because they had the drawn grand final in 77. And, the game was played in October, so it might have been 1 or 2 weeks after the grand final. So, and Ron Barassi's gone on record saying, the players were worn out and had all these excuses, which were probably true. Because it was, the players, like a lot of the players had played, say Collingwood and North Melbourne players played a lot of games that year.
Yes,
they played
definitely.
2 grand finals and a lot of finals. So yeah.
So who's some of the other state jumpers that you have? Who's have you got in the collection there?
I have, I have a Dion Scott, which is probably not a big name, but that was a pretty rare one because that was a Northern Territory Queensland jumper, born in 93.
Yeah.
And that was pretty good. Nathan Buckley actually played in that particular game.
Yeah, right.
And, I think they played Tassie as well. So that was they played a few different teams of that. Yeah, I got that one. I mean, some of my Victorian ones I have Rodney Eade, Greg Williams. So I think I've got, 2 from Greg Williams. And then I've got a couple of lesser known players, Condon it's a 1991. So yeah, bigger names at Rodney Eade and the Greg Williams one, which is good. So I bought that one from a collection of his. I have a lot of different states. I have something from each state, and as I said, I need to research who actually wore a lot of them. So, say for example, the VFA ones, I wouldn't know who wore those, but I need to sort of do the research and match them with players.
It's not easy. Some of the times, very little photographs actually come out of those games as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So a lot of people ask me quite often how you get hold of state jumpers. Now, I don't really have an answer other than checking out Facebook, Gumtree and things like that, but where do you seem to be able to get most of your state jumpers from, or did you get them from?
Most of them have come from networks, so from people who I've, like, some of the networks I've built up over a long, long time, and they know what I like and what I'm collecting, and they'll generally send a photo of the jumper to me and say, Mick, well, does this fit into your collection? And then I'll say yes or no. If I say yes, they'll throw me a figure, and then, we might even negotiate. A lot of the time I don't generally negotiate because most of the guys that sell me the stuff, put a fair price on it. Yeah. And I do, you get the odd 1 or 2 off eBay. In the old days, there was heaps on eBay. It seems to have dried right up these days.
Yeah.
I used to, like, I think I told you in the last one, I used to, look on trading posts before eBay.
Yeah.
Trading posts. I even went on Talkback Radio once and said when I was looking for Bears jumpers.
Yeah.
And I ended up having a 5-minute talk about Christopher Skase to the guy on the other end of the phone. So, yeah, there's some of the weirder ways I've tried to get in the old days before eBay, Facebook, Gumtree, all these things. Yeah, you had to go through the newspaper and stuff like that.
Yeah, crazy. Did you ever find any garage sales or anything like that?
Yeah, not a lot. I did get an Eagles. There was a retail in a shop in Ipswich, beautiful condition, and those are worth a lot these days.
Yeah,
just an Eagles, from '87.
Yeah.
So it had the Burswood logo on it. I seen it and got it for $2 because no one knew what it was. This was probably 8 years ago now, and
wow.
They obviously never knew what it was, and it looked brand new.
Yeah,
I ended up selling it. I had to buy it now as well on it. I put a buy it now, I think like $350 or $400 around that mark, and someone snapped it up really quick.
Yeah.
And then I had other people messaging me saying, "Oh, we'll give you this, $600 or $700 for it." And I go, "I've already sold it for that price." So then I realised how much they were actually worth.
Yeah.
So even retail Eagles are astronomical now.
Absolutely. I mean, the Bears ones are not far behind. Or
they're definitely,
players ones, it's up there as well. So.
Yeah, players ones, yeah. I mean, Bears retails are up there too.
Definitely. All right, so we're winding it down now, but you mentioned that you purchased one of the latest State of Origin Games jumpers. Now, this is very interesting because I've seen a few photos of them, but to actually hear about how they are and how they've come out as far as when you've got it in hand.
I haven't got it yet.
Bugger.
Because I only just paid for it.
Okay.
So about a few days. It's Jake Gresham, and doesn't mean I did want. I was sort of working when the auction was ending, so and I got outbid on the. I wanted to get the Martin one from the Lions. I wanted to get Steph Martin, but I lost that, and then that was about the last one there. That was left, so I thought I'll get that. I did want an Allies. What were they called? All Stars. I wanted one of those as well, but I never ended up getting one of them.
Fair enough.
So that'll be the newest one in my collection, yeah.
That'd be cool. So,
but when I get it, I'll let you know.
Yes, definitely. So they do look very interesting on pictures. So we'll be interested to see what it's like in hand. So yeah, we'd love to hear about it. Yeah,
there are a few guys that have put them on. I think Facebook. Mainly the All Stars one, haven't they?
Yes.
I'm not sure if there's many.
I haven't seen any Vicks yet, but I'm sure they'll be far away.
Yeah. So, but I think they're good. They're a good jumper. I think they're a good investment. They'll be worth. At least they'll hold their own for a couple of years and then might go up a little bit in price.
Yep.
Depending on what they do with that format of, whether they play them again. So,
yes. It'll be interesting. The next game will probably be benefiting the coronavirus.
Exactly.
Probably.
They may play a lot more of them next year because they need to, the code is taken battering financially.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm just going to wind down here and ask you, what is your favourite jumper in your collection?
Well, I do I'll call it Polly Farmer, but we jumper, the 50s state jumper, love that one. Mainly because it's so historic and it's a beautiful looking jumper for the era. My Simon Black one. That was because there's a lot of great memories. I lived in Brisbane in that era when they were winning all the flags. And the kids, it was when my kids were getting a bit older and they appreciated it. And I just thought that I never thought I'd ever get one of those. So that's fantastic. And the Mike Richardson Bears jumper. That's my favourite Bears one, I think, that I've got. I just, a little bit of history there, and I've got some good photos of him wearing it as well. So, that's, they're probably my three favourites.
Beautiful. 3 cracking jumpers. That'd be great in any collection, really, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they're good, yeah.
And do you have any jumpers out there, even just one jumper that you would love to have in your collection?
Yeah, well, the one that I would really like to get is that Bears reverse jumper in from 87, 88. That's one which is just, it's a bit tricky to get. And, I'd love a real old Swan Districts one, as well. I'd love one like the, from the grand final period, which would be near on impossible to get.
Yep.
But, if I, there was one, I'd love that. Yeah, that would be great.
Well, we know where one of the older ones is, so Sean, if you're listening, mate, hit him up.
I don't think he's got to sell it. But, I think that one's about, and Sean will probably know more, but I think it's about 65. So, but he could say it was, a bit earlier, but I think that's about a 65, the one he's got, but that's still a fantastic jumper. Yeah, good pickup from him.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, Mick, I really appreciate you coming on for a second time around.
No worries, mate. Well, it was a little bit different, but I think we covered most of the stuff.
Yeah, a bit different going over Skype, but still really good to hear your voice again and have you in.
No worries.
Enjoyed the chat, so yeah.
No worries, mate. And I will put a few photos of my Bears collection up because I know there's a lot of interest in Bears jumpers.
Yep.
So on Facebook, I don't do a lot of Facebooking, but I know people are starting to get interested, and it's a good way to show people what you got. So I'll definitely put it up soon.
Yep, we'll definitely share your photos on the page. So can't wait to see that. And thank you again, Mick. I really appreciate you.
A pleasure talking to you again, Aaron.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate.
See you, mate. Right. Bye.
There we go. That was our interview for the week with Mick Rush. Once again, Mick, really appreciate you making the time to come on and do a Skype interview with us. It's always different doing Skype. May not have the same natural chemistry that we do in studio, but I think it was still really informative and a great interview overall. And being that we have struggled to get some guests on in the wake of all this stuff going on, it was just great to be able to get something out there for you listeners. Now, I do actually have a few things that we're going to cover off today. Obviously, we have the usual items that I've seen on eBay, Gumtree, etc., things that I've got coming in. But I'm also going to be quite honest, and last night being Saturday, we recorded the interview on Friday. Saturday, I recorded the open and began the editing process and put everything together. And something told me not to record the close last night and to just wait until this evening and see how today unfolded. And I'm glad I did because a lot, obviously, what happened today. Obviously, with the announcement of the suspension of the AFL season after the completion of today's games, which is a huge pity, but obviously a necessary one. And then obviously the Prime Minister getting on TV this evening and announcing all the changes and things that are happening this coming week with New South Wales and Victoria, I believe, going to go in almost complete lockdown, which I can't understand why the entire country isn't doing so. But is what it is, shutting the borders to WA and South Australia amongst the others. I guess it will stop the virus coming in from outside, but I mean, it's still here in WA and things already, so I don't understand how that's really going to stop it when it's already here. Lockdown makes more sense to me, but I'm not a professional, so really I'm here to talk football jumpers, so it's got nothing to do with me, and I'll just go along with it. But it is disappointing to see these things close down and shut down. The social distancing, etc., whereas retail workers like myself, we still are forced to go to work to make a living. And we deal with hundreds of people every day, customers as well as just people walking around the shopping centre. So, it's a little bit scary at times, and every time I get a tickle in my throat, I wonder. But obviously, we'll have to be just a bit careful while we're out there. So everyone make sure that you are careful and you're exhibiting the correct ways about going things, especially with the social distancing and just keeping apart and isolating yourself if you need to, because last thing we need is to break out massively and our footy season just comes to complete cancellation. We certainly don't want that to happen. Obviously, we don't want our family and friends to get sick, of course. So we're going to move away from all of this now. We're going to get into some of the stuff that I've seen in the last couple of weeks, or the last 4 weeks now. The bushfire appeal auctions have all ended and seemingly all quite far behind us now with all this coronavirus stuff going on. But there are some jumpers that went up for auction on the official memorabilia page, not just the state of origin, but also the GWS Giants put up a few of their jumpers as well. Tim Taranto, he put up his 2019 grand final signed match worn jumper, and that sold for $1,100. So not bad actually for a team in their first ever grand final. and the only one that I've actually seen out there, so $1,100 I thought was a pretty good deal. Obviously, the result didn't go their way, but I don't think that'll make too much difference in the eye of a collector in their team's very first grand final. And Tim Taranto himself is also a great player, so well done to Tim Taranto for putting that up, of course. The Giants also put up a few more jumpers. They were mostly, for the player issue, and match one's one anyway, they were the Indigenous jumpers. Now, this is another thing I talk about with the COAs not necessarily always being correct and factual. Research and photo matching and things like that, and it can often be a lot more important than COAs. So on the actual site itself, you are bidding on a Matt DeBoer signed 2019 round 10 match 1 Indigenous jumper. That one is correct. That one went for $250. There were 3 others: Phil Davis, Lockie Whitfield, and Tim Taranto. Now they also say round 10 match 1 Indigenous Guernsey. However, these jumpers were not from round 10. They were from round 11. They actually switched the sponsors around, which I'm sure you've heard from Clint Johnson in our episode 5, I believe. I should know this by now. I've mentioned it many times, but I believe it was episode 5, where he said that the Indigenous jumpers just simply switched the sponsor arrangement from front to back when they did the home and the away Indigenous rounds. So, if you did buy one, if you can let us know on the page or whatever, just contact me directly, and just let us know if you get a COA with it. You should, and what it actually says on that COA, because if it says round 10, you'll be very disappointed, I would imagine, because it is a round 11 jumper. And I haven't actually researched to make sure that those players actually played in the round 11 game, so you might want to do that as well. So the Phil Davis went for $300, Tim Taranto went for $400, and Lockie Whitfield went for $500. So again, well done to GWS for putting those up for a great cause. Disappointing that official memorabilia haven't done the right research and put it up correctly, but hopefully they send out the right COAs for you. Now on to the big stuff. Now I'm not going to read out all of it because it will be here all night long. But so the State of Origin game did indeed auction off all of their match-worn jumpers, both the Vics and the All-Stars, and of course their pair of match-worn boots for the game as well, which was a nice touch. If you couldn't get a jumper, you were likely going to be able to get a pair of their boots a bit cheaper. I, unfortunately, couldn't afford either, so I got neither. So I'll just read out some of the larger ones here. So Rory Sloane's Big V jumper went for $2,000, and his boots went for $550. Scott Pendlebury's jumper went for $3,750, or his boots went for $850. Paddy Dangerfield's jumper went for $2,050, and his boots went for $700. Jeremy Cameron's jumper, obviously an absolute superstar of the game and last year's common medalist, his jumper went for $1,218, so not a bad price. His boots went for $550. Toby Green's jumper went for $1,800, and his boots went for $1,000. Now, the big ones, obviously, Richmond supporters are still willing to pay big money even if they're not wearing the Richmond jumper. Dusty Martin's went for $8,750 big ones, so huge dollars there. And his boots went for $1,600. Trent Cotchin's jumper went for $6,001, and his boots went for $1,450. Basher Hooley's jumper went for $2,100. Tom Lynch's jumper went for $1,750. Marcus Bontempelli, his jumper went for $2,550. And it looks like the Eagles fans aren't quite willing to spend as much money on a Big V as they would an Eagles jumper, because Andrew Gaff's jumper went for $1,100, which, in the scheme of things, is a bit of a bargain, and his boots went for $650. One of the Matthews balls, which was dual signed, I believe, by the two captains, went for $1,450. Now into the All-Stars. Obviously, being the losing team, prices weren't quite as high as the Vics were. You can pick up Lockie Neal's one for $1,400. Eddie Betts' went for $1,000, didn't have the greatest game. Patrick Cripps, his jumper went for $2,150, so massive difference in scale between Brownlow medal favourites Dusty Martin and Paddy Cripps, so someone picked up a good bargain there, I reckon. And his boots also went for $887. Nat Fyfe's jumper, so the last year's Brownlow medalist. Again, big difference in the scale with the two Brownlow medalists. $2,850, and his boots went for $1,000. Michael Walters' jumper went for $1,250, and his boots went for $700. I was hoping to get one of those, but just slightly out of my range trying to buy a house at the moment. Could have picked up Zach Tui's jumper for $650, and his boots went for $350, so bargains there. Steve Caniglio's jumper, so his was the highest getting GWS jumper, and that went for $2,050. Shane Edwards went for $1,200. Jack Rewalt went for $1,300. Bradley Hill went for $820. Callum Mills, so it was a bit of a surprise there. Callum Mills went for $3,050. So the Eagles fans came out to play with the All-Stars jumpers, $1,850 for Brad Shepherd's jumper, and a $2,500 bid on Elliot Yeo's jumper. Now, the huge surprise here was his boots went for $2,253. I'm going to guess it went to the same person. I can actually check that. Give me a second. No, they actually didn't go to the same person. That's a bit of a surprise. I suppose it probably didn't have any money left after buying the jumper. But, yeah, $2,253. So whoever bought those boots obviously really wanted the jumper and didn't quite get it. So they got the boots instead. Well done to all those guys buying those jumpers because they did raise a heck of a lot of money for the bushfire appeal, and another one of the balls went for $1,300. So, huge amount of money raised there. It was a great cause. It was a great game. I enjoyed it. Vicks ran away with it in the end, but let's just hope and pray that we see some more of this in future. Hopefully we can bring back the traditional State of Origin games, Victoria, WA, South Australia, etc., etc. We'd love to see that come back and be real competition between these teams. The players obviously seem to really like it as well, so I think they would be really happy if it came back too, and definitely sponsors would be stoked. eBay's had some really great stuff up lately. Start with a number 8 Luke Russell 2012 home jumper. That went for $59.75, Luke Russell being the Gold Coast Suns ex-player. And looking at that, actually got relisted, which I didn't see, and it went for $45.75 the second time around. I believe that jumper was actually up on Gumtree a while ago for $30, and I said I'd go pick it up, and the bloke ghosted me and basically told me to get stuffed, which I thought, okay, that was a bit rude, but congratulations to whoever picked it up. You made yourself $15. Yeah, it was a 2019 Gary Ablett country jumper, went for $215.50. Now, someone's pulled out some jumpers out of the cupboard recently. They've pulled out some West Coast Eagles 2006 away jumpers. So this is the same season that they won their grand final in that particular jumper. So these jumpers are obviously going to go for a decent amount of money just purely because of the jumper that was used in that grand final. Even though a 46 and a 48, I couldn't even tell you who wore those. But the 46 went for $153 and the 48 went for $123. There was also an Adam Hunter as well that went in that same lot. I, for some reason, have deleted that, but I believe it went somewhere around about $260, $270. So that's actually not a bad price. Adam Hunter had a great game and did some great moments in that game as well. So, yeah, really good price. Whoever picked that up, I think, would be stoked. There was a bunch of Sydney player issue jumpers go up as well, and I actually know who won 6 of them. Braden Giles has actually let me know that majority of those are actually sample jumpers. They have on the inside of the jumper down the bottom where the tag is, on the inside of the jumper, there is a stamp on it. Now, the stamp says it is a sample of ISC and it's signed by whoever it was that approved the sample. So if you've ever seen that before, then yeah, you'll know that that is the sign that they are sample jumpers. If you haven't seen that, maybe just have a look at some of your player issue ISC jumps, especially from the 2013-14 season. Turn them inside out, have a look at the bottom tag, and see if it's stamped sample on there. You never know, it could be a sample, which could be a good or bad thing. It depends on what your feel is on that particular jumper. So they all went for around about $50 each. There was also Jude Bolton's 2012, I believe, 11-12 training jumper. They went for $155. It fetched a whole lot higher than I expected. There was a 2010 Richmond number 45 player issue signed on the front and back, and that one went for $107.50. A long sleeve GWS Kevin Sheedy signed commemorative jumper, so signed by Kevin Sheedy. It was a number 10, which was Devon Smith. These are really cool jumpers. So it had all of Kevin Sheedy's accomplishments on the front of the jumper, which is really cool. It actually says Kevin Sheedy's contributions to the game, which is really, really cool. And he has signed quite recently a lot of these different types of jumpers in Love Life. It's a gift from your parents. So he signs out a majority of the things, I believe, nowadays. That was really cool. Long sleeve. Great looking jumper, quite rare. $157.50. Also recently, I believe it was 2 days ago, there was a Charlie Cameron, number 42, Adelaide Crows, 2014, 15-ish. Not sure, someone can correct me on that. That went for $150.50. That was signed on the front as well by a number of players. There's a bunch of Essendon jumpers go up as well. And I reckon just after yesterday's win against the Dockers, someone decided to get on there and buy them all. So there was a Jobe Watson name jumper, size small, so very likely that it was one of those retail name jumpers. Essendon put out, I believe, Zaharakis, Watson, Heppel, somebody else, I believe, as well. Hurley, maybe, where they had them retailed at different sizes. So probably not a legit player issue name jumper, but still really cool and still rare. You don't see them too often anymore. Went for $200, but it was best offer, so it may have gone for less, being that this person probably bought all of them. Zaharakis training jumper from around 2012-13 as well. Rent for $200, but again, best offer. These are all best offers, so they all had $200 on them. A Stuart Cranberry Legends jumper, the John Coleman edition, the grey one. And a Darcy Parish home jumper from around 2016. Really beautiful looking jumper. The Adidas did make a nice jumper. A sash did cut off at the front, which a lot of people didn't like, and I think looks quite weird. But the cut of the jumper does look pretty nice. Again, $220 was the offer on that one, so we'll see. Well, I don't know how much it went for in the end, but some great jumpers there that all got sold. There's quite a few up as well at the moment. I won't go through all more because there's heaps, but there is one particular one on there at the moment, which is a 2017 Brandon Ellis Tigers signed player issue grand final jumper. So this is one of those jumpers that the Tigers put up for auction after the game and had to pull it down because they were all put up as match worn. People were bidding crazy numbers on them, and then they found out that the players only wore one jumper throughout the game. So they had to pull them down and put them back up as player issue because they were actually worn throughout the season or possibly in previous finals. But they weren't worn in the grand final. So they do have the grand final patch on the front, and they are signed by the players. Do come in a nice little box. But yes, unfortunately, they weren't worn in the 2017 grand final. It was still really cool. And obviously, if you're a big Tigers fan, then it's something you might want to have in your collection. It does have a $5,500 all best offer price tag on it though, so depends how much you really want it. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I've seen in the world of Gumtree or eBay that really stands out this week, or this last 4 weeks. Just quickly let you know what I got. Wasn't too much. I picked up a 2016 Peel Thunder training player issue jumper. Really nice looking jumper. I couldn't say no. It was at the Fremantle and Carlton game, and they said I could have it for $30, so I couldn't say no. It was number 56. No idea who wore it, if anybody, but it just was a nice looking jumper, so I thought I'd pick it up. Also managed to get my hands on a 2020, yes, 2020, Connor Blakely training player issue jumper. I got the purple and the grey. So stoked to pick up those, especially, it's the first time I've ever picked up a jumper before the season even started for that season, so that was really cool to see. I picked up a few long sleeves as well. I picked up 5 long sleeve jumpers, all Fremantle. I got a 2018 home Luke Ryan and a 2018 home Adam Chera. I also picked up a 2018 away Adam Chera and away Luke Ryan as well, and a 2017 Luke Ryan. Again, they were all long sleeve player issues. Gorgeous jumpers. I love the long sleeves. They look really, really nice. I also picked up one of the Buddy Franklin 300 game jumpers that the Swans are selling on their website. So it's got his number 23 on the back sublimated. It actually is the same cut and size that Buddy wears in a game. So it's an extra large long, and it is the player cut jumpers. The same material, everything, and it is the exact same size that he wears. So it's really nice, really cool. It came in a pretty large tin. It was like really solidly fat. It was huge tin. It was really cool, and it has his accomplishments on the front of the jumper as well. Pity they didn't actually wear that jumper in the games. That would have been really cool, and it probably would have meant that my one was a player issue, because mine actually came with a GPS pocket, which, from what I can tell, none of the others did. So it would have been really cool if I had scored that, but yeah, mine's just an anomaly, I believe. But if you really want one of those, get onto the Swan shop website, because there are some left, and I believe they're $99 plus postage. And they were limited to 300, so they're really cool and really rare. Well, it will be really rare eventually when they eventually sell out. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to read out some of the wanteds that we put up on the post a few weeks ago, probably about 3 months ago now actually, but read out some of the wanted ads that some of the guys wanted, that they were looking for particular jumpers, and there are still obviously plenty more that people would like to get their hands on, so I'm going to read out some of those for you now. Leighton Ashwell, he's after a 97 home player issue Crows jumper. It's also after a 05 Heritage player issue Crows jumper. He would also like a 2017 home player issue Guernsey. Should be plenty of those around, so we should be able to get him one of them. And any Mark Rasciuto player issue of any kind. Anybody who is a Crows fan obviously wants a Roo jumper, so if anyone has one of those, hit him up. Joel Williams. Joel would really like a 2009 white Clash jumper. I'd also like a 2009 red Clash, a 2003 pre-season, a 2001 to 2002 pre-season, a 99 home, and a 98 home. All of these, of course, Melbourne Demons jumpers, which I forgot to mention. Jeremy McMahon would really like a Darren Jarman Crows jumper. If anyone has one, let us know. Peter Pazios is a massive Port Adelaide fan. He's really after a 97 training jumper, a 2002 Teal trainer, a 2013 Heritage, and any Wanganeen, Primus, Cassisi number 1s, or Byron Pickett's. So, yeah, still got heaps more that people were after, but if anybody has any of those jumpers, hit us up with the page, or hit those guys up directly and see if you guys can make a deal. That is going to do it for us today. Hopefully we're not too far away from the next episode. Obviously I want to do one every month at least. Otherwise we might run out of people to talk to, and it has actually been rather difficult getting people on. So we can't do everything too quickly at the moment because we will run out of guests, and we want this to run as long as we possibly can, or as long as you guys will listen. So as long as you guys are listening, we'll keep bringing it to you. And please just keep up the feedback. Jump on to whatever podcast platform it is that you guys listen to. Give us a 5-star rating and a review if you can. It helps us in some way. It also just helps my ego. But I would really appreciate if you can do that for us. And of course, I really appreciate you listening and sending me your feedback whenever you guys can and whenever you do. It's great to see, great to hear, and I do this for you, so I'm really glad that you guys are enjoying the show. So that'll do it. Thank you again to Mick for today's interview. Huge congratulations to the Perth Wildcats on being crowned the 2020 NBL champions. Great season to the Sydney Kings, but I think rightfully so, the Perth Wildcats were named the champions of 2020. So congratulations go out to them. Bryce Cotton, you are a beast. As always, I hope you guys have a big week in collecting. There's some big ones still out there, I know it, and I know you guys are going to pick some up, so let us know on the page if you do. So that's it for today. Ta-ta for now, and good night.